Good afternoon and welcome to CNU Talks live at lunch. I'm Grace Charlin, class of 2021, and your Assistant Director of Alumni Relations here at Christopher Newport, and I'm going to be serving as our moderator today. This monthly series is brought to you by the Christopher Newport Alumni Society and your Office of Alumni Relations. These talks have brought to us different members of our Captain for Life community and Christopher Newport community, from professors, coaches, and alumni, all doing incredible things throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia and our country. We are so excited that we've got to bring you so many different varieties on so many different topics of interest, and we hope to continue to bring forth things that speak to both your hearts and your minds. Today, I'm excited to introduce to you Kimberly Davis, a professor here at Christopher Newport in our School of Engineering and Computing. She has taught here at Christopher Newport since 2013 after earning her Bachelor of Science in Systems Engineering at the University of Virginia and then her Master's in Information Science from UNC Chapel Hill. We are so excited to have her as she will be sharing with us about the current state of artificial intelligence and ways that we can leverage it in our everyday lives. From efficiencies in the workforce to useful tips for managing in our personal lives, AI is now a tool that we can leverage daily and we want to be learning more about. There's going to be a time for questions and at the end. So if you have questions, please type them in the Q&A area down below. And once it's time for questions, I'll read some of those asked for as long as time allows. This session will also be recorded and shared with our Captain for Life community later to view at another time. So with that, I turn things over to the wonderful Kimberly Davis.
Uh, Thank you, Grace, for that very warm introduction. Hello, everyone. I see some familiar names here in the group, so it's nice to see some of you virtually and to meet others of you. So I am going to talk to you as Grace said about AI and kind of what it looks like today. So Grace, I sent you the screen share link. I'm going to share my screen with you. There we go. All right. So brain power, everyday wins with AI. I'll talk a bit about that title later. Um, so first, a disclaimer. This is a great sketch which many of you have seen. No one knows, and in AI, no one really knows what is happening. We everything that we think we know now is changing. I was in a cohort this summer or this past spring semester, and we started off. We were working on things, and between January and even March, April, so many things had changed. So I'm confident in what I'm going to share with you today. And I know that everything I share with you today will probably start to change very soon because this is one of the fastest moving progressions of technology that we've seen in a while. Um, but I have though tried to kind of keep things general and applicable so you can apply these concepts going forward, even though the landscape is changing in ways that we can't always predict. So I want to share just a little bit about myself. As Grace mentioned, I am on the faculty here at CNU in the School of Engineering and Computing. I also have some things I do around campus within the college. I'm the incoming digital humanities co-director, working with the liberal learning core, a few different things, and teach a lot of courses. And students across the university and in the Luder School, all of the other colleges. Have taken a lot of the courses that I teach. So I've been really blessed to be able to engage with faculty and students all across campus. Also, I run a creative and technology agency, Sparked on Media. I've got a studio on J. Clyde, just a few miles down the road from campus. And there, I specialize in creative services like photography and videography, also a lot of graphic design, web development, and consulting. And my most exciting thing right now is I've been working on an app called SeniorApp.me, designed for high school and college students and recent college graduates. And just in the last couple months, released it in the Apple App Store, and just yesterday morning, released in the Google Play Store. So, so that's been one of my most exciting titles lately. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later in context of this conversation. So, I'm sharing this as an introduction, but mainly I want you to kind of know my perspective in terms of what rooms I'm in having AI conversations. So I have AI conversations with friends and family, as most of you do, with my colleagues in the School of Engineering Computing, with my colleagues across campus in liberal arts departments, with my students and trying to create good learning environments for my students, also with professionals in academia, in creative services, film production. These are kind of all of the spaces where I'm engaging with people and having these AI based conversations. So, in those conversations, in all of these different spaces, here's some of the outlooks, some of the things that I hear. Um, there's, wow, this is so great. AI is amazing. There's, oh no, this is so terrible for the planet, terrible for student learning, terrible for humanity. That, oh wow, this makes my tedious job so much easier. And oh yay, now I can take the easy way out. And then there's, oh, will this make my job unnecessary? Or what a lot of our students now are worried about, will I even be able to get a job? And these are the things that we hear, definitely fueled by, again, this rapidly moving and very uncertain time. It's by no means the first disruptor that society has seen, but just the pace and the uncertainty, and it creates a lot of unease for a lot of people, also a lot of excitement, some of everything. So these are a lot of the things that I hear, and I want to share with you, I think, two better outlooks, two better ways for us to think about AI. Um, First, that we should be looking at it to make the most of the time. So if you can use technology to give yourself more time, more capacity, it's a thing. It reminds me of when I met my husband, we were dating, and he had this dishwasher in his condo that had never been used ever. And I was so confused, like, why are you not using a dishwasher? Why are you hand washing the dishes every day? Over the years, we've been married now, a lot of years, 26 years now, and we've had great dishwashers and terrible dishwashers. Some of them you had to wash everything over and over again. Some of them you can take the lazy route and put everything in and it just comes out clean. So, by making the most of the time, if we're using even the technology as simple as a dishwasher, if we're putting that to good use, then that can free up our time either for those things that do need those dishes that do need the a hand touch, a scrub, or pre-wash or whatever. But we're able to free ourselves up for other tasks and other things. Second, better outlook, make the most of the tech. So this is a screenshot from the film Hidden Figures, and I watched the film before, but kind of came back to me as I was in these AI conversations recently. So here, there was takes place at NASA Langley, right over here in Hampton, and there were these new computers coming in, and they were going to make all of the human computers, the human calculators, irrelevant. And so, there's a lot of panic about that, and so this woman is in charge of a group of women coders, women mathematicians, women computers, they were called. And so her thought was, well, she goes out and she gets a book on Fortran, which is the programming language in use at that time. And she teaches all of the women how to use the new computers. They learn Fortran, they learn new computers. So a little bit later in the movie, not to give the spoilers, but the a little later in the movie, they are forced to turn the computers online, and they don't know what to do because no one has, everyone was just intimidated, nobody bothered with them. And she's like, oh, my team and I are ready. And so she comes in and they're ready to actually use the computers. A little bit more time passes and there's a situation where the computers are working, but there needs to be some human intervention. There was there was a problem, and they were trying to figure out, are the calculators or the computers calculating incorrectly. And so they needed a human to come in and make, to make some manual calculations and to sanity check everything, and the mission was a success. So, applying that to AI, we can make the most of the tech. We've got this great, powerful thing coming. We can be intimidated by it. We can be nervous about it. We can be concerned about it. And those things can be valid. But is it not a good decision to figure out the best way to leverage this technology to do your job better, to make your life safer, to make things more efficient? So I think by looking at conserving your time, putting your time and energy into the most critical things that you can do, and then leveraging the technology in the most responsible ways possible, these are really looking at this uncertain time of AI with a bit more optimism and a bit more intentionality. As I mentioned a moment ago, AI is not the first disruptor. So if we think about how you could travel when there were just horses and buggies, and how you can travel when there are transatlantic, transcontinental flights. Um, when the sky's the limit, how far can you go? And so, just like with the disruptors that came before it, incidentally, spell check was quite controversial when it first came out. And so now we don't even give that a second thought. So how much more can we do when these new technologies emerge? How many of you have said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I'm so overwhelmed. There's so much to do. There's a lot on us, weighing on us at this time." So if you had more time, if you had more energy, more resources, more teammates, what could you accomplish? And is it not true that AI technologies are in a position to give us more time by automating tasks that we used to have to do manually and very slowly? Giving us more energy that we can spend, mental energy and physical energy that we can spend on different types of tasks. Um, they're a great resource that never tires, environmental issues aside, outside our scope for today. Um, but never tires, pretty much can continue to run and can serve as a very helpful teammate. So, one thing that my students hear me say over and over again is that I love technology. It is so cool and fascinating, but it's really only as good as it's good at helping us to do human things, to live more safely, to do our jobs better, to protect others, to make medical advancements. That's really what technology is all about. It's a tool that helps humans do life, and technology just for the sake of technology is quite interesting to some of us, but not really useful and valuable unless it's doing something for us. So what I say often is that we need to make computers do what they do well, and then we as humans can do the things that we were created to do. We are unmatched in our creativity, our ingenuity, and if you can be fueled by the content and benefits of a technology like AI, then that can really free you up to do amazing things. So, the next or the remaining two pieces of our presentation. First, I'm going to go over 4 steps to using AI, which I hope are timeless and will not change, and then 5 ways to use AI, looking at some examples. So, 4 steps to using AI. 1, contemplate the situation. So here, definitely we're talking first about ethics. In the classroom on campus, there's so many discussions about making sure that we aren't shortcutting student learning or not letting them shortcut their learning process by using AI too soon or too inappropriately. Um, so that's a huge focus in academia. In the workplace, I'd like you to think about those movies, hopefully not in real life, but those movies where there's someone who's got like a team of people working, or maybe a team of paralegals working with them, and then they come up with a solution and everybody's happy. Then there's a situation where this unknown person behind the scenes writes a whole report or does a whole thing, shows it to their supervisor, and then the supervisor shows it off as their own work, and they get rewarded and everything. Then the person is just left there not having done anything. I want that situation to remind you of some of the ethics between ownership and when is it okay to have been assisted with something, and when are you claiming ownership and claiming authority and origination over something when that's not actually correct. That can be a good measure when you're considering the ethical constraints. Also, if someone is paying you as a consultant or for your type of work, and you just type something into chat gpt and spit it back out, then are you really adding value? Are you really adding the most value that you're able to add? So Think about that. And I'll also talk about copyright issues a little bit later. That's another huge, huge consideration. But think about the situation. Is it appropriate for me to use AI in this context? Is it something that I need to disclose? Scholarly paper that we need to say, yes, I've used AI in these ways. Thinking about those concepts, and then whether you are claiming authorship, like you're writing a book and you're saying this is my book and this is my work, but AI wrote it, or is this a situation where you're presenting something that it's okay to have had that that extra help with in terms of processing some of the data behind what you're doing? Second piece to contemplate is privacy. And so this really is about putting your content into an AI system, and then knowing that that is then going to be part of that system going forward, part of something that they learn. Now, I'm not an attorney. Um, I don't totally pour over legal documents in terms of use. A lot of the big AI companies or large companies like Microsoft and Apple, companies that are using AI in their systems, they're telling us that they are not using our data for learning. So we can believe them, and that's fine. I'll let that go for now. But basically, anything that's published on the internet is fair game. If you're using a free system, many of those will indeed take your content and use it. So if you have something that's proprietary and you want AI feedback on it, and you take that proprietary information and you put it into a system, you should be aware of at least the potential for making that publicly available, even if it's, diced up and spliced up and kind of integrate into other thoughts. You are now taking your content and making that part of the overall universe of data that AI can pull from. Um, I want you to also think about coming up in bullet three, but there are some platforms like Dropbox is one of the most recent ones I've seen where you just uploading your files to Dropbox. I use it for tons of storage. And now they have integrated AI tools. So they're going to be looking at my documents and making suggestions like, oh, is this what you're looking for? And oh, maybe put these files in the same folder. But now I have to wonder, well, how are you using my data to train your AI? It's nice if you're using it to help me, but I don't really want you to use it to help everybody else in a way that infringes upon my privacy. So these are things you have to think about in terms of how you use AI and what you are willing to put into these systems. All right, step two, once you've contemplated the ethics and privacy and you've got a green light to move forward, consider the task. So, which steps in your process are suitable for AI? We know that it's problematic to say, hey, AI, write me a paper. First of all, it's not going to be a good paper, and it's completely an ethical violation. So, in your personal life, your workplace, your academic life, think about the steps. If I have to do this, there's 10 steps involved. Which of those steps are suitable for AI? Which of those steps sound like a lot of just mindless clicking and making a list of websites, or a lot of kind of taking something and massaging it and rearranging some content? Which things are really, again, things that computers can do really well, but not your biggest value add? Those are good steps to consider bringing AI into your process. So think, instead of asking it to do the big, huge things, think about individual steps in your process that AI can help you with. And again, we're going to go over 5 ways to use AI, and that'll give you some specific ideas there. All right, step three, choose the tool. So, I've lumped all of AI into 3 categories. First of all, standalone tools. The one most people are familiar with is ChatGPT. I will show you an example of that later. But I have a list that I give in one of my classes where we have an AI assignment. I have a list of about 100 AI tools that I've come across, and then so there are a lot out there. Tying into this second bullet of embedded, some of those tools are websites that are running on the Chat GPT engine. Or like I mentioned with Dropbox, also Microsoft Office, Google, the whole Google Workspace, Google Drive applications, Gmail, where there are now AI features embedded into software and software as a service web-based platforms that we're already used to using. So in those situations, you can be, in, your web browser or, your software package. Adobe Creative Cloud has a lot of tools they've embedded into their photo, video, image editing tools where now there's an AI button and it does a certain thing within that space. So you do have tools that are embedded into other platforms, and you should be aware that they're there, pay attention to them, and when you do have a task, you're trying to figure out, well, which tool is going to be best at doing this. Now, the automated part, if we had another hour, I would dive into this. But just want to summarize it by saying it is possible to have a system where certain steps are then automatically done by an AI tool. So I mentioned my app, senior app, that we just released in the app stores, we've been working on for the last several years. So one of the features there is the ability to search between colleges and majors and careers. And so if I'm interested in this college, what are the majors that are offered? And what are some careers that's people with that major often tend to head into? And so I wanted to have kind of a summary if you're a young high school student or a college freshman like my son looking at different majors, and you kind of went, well, what is that major? What does that mean? And I wanted to kind of have a little summary of the major. But there's hundreds of majors. And so I could have made a list of all of those summaries, but honestly, there was so much to do just building the app. I just didn't have that much time for it. Now, these hundreds of majors, is someone going to look at every single one of them, or am I going to spend hours writing descriptions of majors and maybe my audience just never clicks on that one? So, what I did instead is I built in a little automation. So, when someone clicks on a major, inside my software, it says, has there already been a summary written for this major? If there hasn't already been a summary, if there's not already a summary in my database, then it quickly goes and asks ChatGPT, what is a blank major? What is an art history major? And then it runs that summary. I told it, how many words, things like that. And then it gives back that answer. Then that answer gets saved in the database. So the next time someone comes to look at art history or whatever major, the description is already there. I'm not paying for all of these hits on AI. And it gives the students kind of a faster experience. I was comfortable using that because being able to say what is an art history major, like you can say that. What is a computer science major? The fields are all very broad and the descriptions are written that way. And they're a little bit different from one school to the next. Some of them have some variation. So I was comfortable that the quality of that answer would be appropriate. So I did a lot of testing and it worked. So automation, where again, things can happen behind the scenes and very exciting. But again, going to move forward because that's a whole happy can of worms there. Okay, so you've contemplated the situation, figured out whether or not it's appropriate to use AI. Consider the task, chosen which steps in your process are best suited for AI intervention and interaction. And then you've chosen the tool, which platform is going to be best at doing this task or helping me with this task. And then last piece to certify the results. So I did go with the alliteration here, but certifying the results, remembering that AI is not always accurate, that you can have what are commonly called hallucinations, but basically, again, you've pulled from all these pools of data, but some of those are things written by people that didn't know what they were talking about, or information is just incorrect or information that's outdated. So, regardless, anything you get back from an AI tool, you definitely need to certify the results, which is just you looking at it, maybe checking the sources, making sure that the information you received is in fact accurate. That is hugely important. We can often find we can't spot students who use AI well, but we can definitely spot the ones that use it poorly, where the answers are just completely off base. I had situation where I saw some work from a student, and they disclosed that they were using AI, and I was like, I'm happy that you told me that, because I would have been really worried, because you have learned this and you could have done so much better than this tool. And so we were able to talk through. It wasn't a honor violation, so it was just kind of an in-class activity. And so we were able to talk it through, and that student was able to do their own work much better. But if you don't stop and check, like, is this correct? Does this make sense? Then you're really setting yourself up for a lot of problems and a lot of embarrassment. The latest story on that was a an employee at a news publication who put out a summer reading list and went the lazy route, asked ChatGPT or whoever to make the list, and there were books on the list that did not exist. Sadly, that person does not have a job anymore. And that's just the latest example of someone getting something from AI and just putting it out there, and not taking the time to check and make sure it's accurate. All right. So if you follow these 4 steps, which again, I hope are timeless enough that even when new technologies come up, when the new models are much more advanced a month from now, let alone 6 months from now, I hope that these are still steps that will make sense to kind of follow along with the process. So next, I'd like us to look at 5 ways to use AI. So using it for compilation, imagination, impersonation, transformation, and generation. So we're going to look at each of these and see some examples, and also some tips along the way, some things to watch for to make sure that you can use AI in the best ways possible, and I'll also show you a couple of examples along the way too. So first, using AI for compilation. So here, I want you to think about what are your most time-consuming tasks, your most repetitive tasks, and thinking about what you are best gifted to do, and things that are not really adding a huge amount of value based on your experience and expertise. So one example here I have is requesting sources. So give me a list of books about blank topic, or give me a list of companies engaged in this service offering. Again, you've still got to check and verify that. But if that task would have taken you a few hours in a search engine looking for things, and instead you can get that list and then use that list directly to get information from, then that is going to be a better use of your time, and you can dig into whatever analysis you're about to do. There's a site where there's a list of thousands of software packages, and anytime I did a search on that list and I pulled my list of, okay, these are the 10 or 20 packages I want to look at in this situation, I would have to every time copy the name of the package, go to a search engine, find their main website, find their features page, find the pricing page. I had to do that for like 20 things just manually over and over again. Um, then as we first started testing AI tools out a couple years ago, I was like, okay, well, here's the list. I just pasted the list into it, and I asked it for the information. Now, sometimes links in the AI tools don't really work, so sometimes I ask it just for the plain text of a link and not a clickable link. You find little tweaks along the way. But what used to take me, you know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, depending on the length of the list. Now I was able to just have it give me a list, give me the pricing page, give me the features page. They weren't all correct. It was decent, maybe 80% correct, but still a lot faster. And what people really needed me to do is to figure out, well, which tools should I use for this job? Not, oh, how fast can Kim go to all of these websites and grab these links? So again, you're shifting your energy and attention to the things that you are best equipped to do, to kind of those high stakes things, and giving your AI the ability to do these other tasks. Um, some things that maybe a virtual assistant would do, some things that maybe an administrative assistant would do. But I want to stop right here when I say that. Those people in those roles should not at all feel threatened that they are going to be replaced by AI, but instead to find more ways to use their skill. I have a tremendous amount of respect for administrators, and because I am so not organized in certain things, and I know what it looks like when you have someone on your team that's like keeping you all in line. Our school administrator here at CNU is incredible, and she keeps us all all organized, all in line. So even though, yeah, there are some tasks that are like, sound like administrative tasks or something like that. If you don't have to do that, then think about what else you can do. Can you dive into, doing something more like what's the step two and step three and step 10 that you never could get to because you didn't have time for before. So any task that you hear that's like part of your responsibility, but you can improve on it or do it faster with AI, think about what else you can do. What new value can you add when you no longer have to deal with those individual pieces? So, compiling large amounts of data, AI tools are excellent at doing that. Okay, next, imagination, using AI to generate ideas and suggestions. My biggest tip here is to ask for more than you need. If you need 5 blog post topics, ask for 10, ask for 20. That does two things. First, it forces discernment. It forces you out of the habit of just, okay, let me just, here's the 5 things, there's the answer. Or, the guy with the books. Here, I need 50 books, give me 50 books, here's the 50 books. They were not all books. So if you are getting yourself in the habit of using discernment where you have to say, okay, which of these is the best option? You're making sure that you won't fall into the trap of just blindly taking what AI gives you. This is really important. Something I really try to get my students to do also, so they don't just, think, oh, it's just going to tell me the right thing, and here it is. If you have a list and you already know you have to whittle it down, it forces you into that process of deciding what makes the most sense. Um, Related to that, it also helps you to keep AI in perspective, knowing that this is not some magical oracle always correct about everything, but it's something that's a very helpful tool, but fallible. That's going to help you keep a right perspective in how you bring in AI. Just like in an organization, we have really great and talented people, but you also have a series of checks and balances, getting feedback from each other, looking for minor mistakes, a typo like I had a couple slides ago, things where you can catch, um, you know, kind of catch each other, help each other, improve each other. Um, that is how you should look at AI, not just as this like it's always true, it's always accurate. So by keeping yourself in the process of getting more information, that will help you to keep AI in the right perspective. So I created this entire presentation myself. I feel like I couldn't just like AI the presentation. That would not have been right. But when I got to this slide and I was like, okay, I want some examples. So I was like, okay, let me ask it for a title for this presentation. So what I'm going to show you are my conversation with I used ChatGPT for this. I'm using it as my example and how I came up with a title. So what I first said was, give me an engaging title and subtitle for a workshop that discusses, this is pretty much Grace's email, using AI day-to-day life to increase efficiency and leverage it as a helpful tool. And then give me some tools. Oh no, I said that I was going to include tips and principles for using AI in sample uses. And I asked it to give me 10 title, subtitle ideas. So it gave me these 10 on the left. I didn't like any of them. I asked it to give me 10 more. I wanted them to still be friendly and engaging. Well, more friendly and engaging because these were a little stiff, honestly. You might not have stayed on the call. I don't know. um, and then these, a little tighter, more concise, but still professional. But I didn't like any of these either. But you can see it kind of, improved along the way. So this is how I typically ask it. I ask it, give me 10 more, and I'm trying to get to one example. What would it have looked like if I'd asked it just for one title? So I did that as an example for you to see. So give me an engaging title and subtitle. Same thing I said, but I didn't ask for any options. So it says, here's an engaging title and subtitle pairing that strikes a balance between friendly and professional. Title, Everyday AI, Smarter Living starts now. Ooh, didn't like that one so much. All right. Subtitle, long subtitle. Discover practical tips, time-saving tools, and smart strategies to use. Blah, blah, blah. So if I had asked for one thing and if I had used this would have been the title and it would have been a mouthful. It's not wrong, but it's just a lot and not really what I was going for. So I didn't like the first 10, didn't like the first 20, the next 20, Didn't like those. So I thought, okay, well, what do I want the title to be? So I had an idea to have a word with the letters AI in it and to kind of focus on that. So I was like, okay, let me ask it to help me find that list of words. So I asked it for a list of 20 words, and then I asked it for 20 more because I didn't like the first 20 that include the letter combination AI and are related to professionalism, productivity, blah, blah, blah. So this was a funny list to me. As you can see, I went through, started crossing out the ones that just didn't have the letters AI in them together. And then it was funny if you look, because some of these it had to like explain why it was on the list, which was funny to me. Like complain was it like, oh well, this is useful in communications and feedback context, and like constraints, oh, in planning or design. So some of them it felt like could stand alone, and some of them is like, nah, I need some help with this. So then I was like, okay, I like brain power. Again, I wanted to do the AI thing. So I was like, okay, I like brain power. So then I asked it for, again, the title pairings everything with the word brain power in it. So it gave me all of these, and I highlighted the word brain power, and then I highlighted the one that I ended up liking, Everyday Wins with AI. I actually started to change it. I didn't completely love. I mostly liked it, but I decided to go with that one. So ended up with this title, Brain Power Everyday Wins with AI. I did not keep their extra subtitle. I felt like this was a subtitle enough. And then I did my own kind of branding on it. And so the concept here is like, yes, there's AI. You're using AI, but you're also using your own brain and you have power from doing that. And that's why, that word caught me. And then everyday wins with AI is kind of a play because it's like you get everyday wins, but also everyday kind of wins if you're using AI the right way. So I thought this worked. Um, and I wanted again to just give you an example of what that process could look like. I think the outcomes were better when I had kind of my own ideas in there, but definitely it saved me from pulling out my thesaurus, which I still have my childhood thesaurus, and flipping through it looking for A's and I's together, or going online and finding a list. I maybe would have stumbled upon a website that had the words together, but using AI was great to just say, give me a list of words with these two letters together, and then I could go through that list of 40 words and find something that really fit what I was trying to do. All right, next, impersonation. This I think is really cool. Chat GPT is being again just one of many examples, has the word chat in it, but we don't really think of it as like a actual conversation. But it's actually pretty cool to try something like this. So help me practice these HR principles by pretending to be a disgruntled employee. So if you sit down with a tool and you give it kind of an introduction, like, okay, we are a blank company, blah, blah, blah. Here's our HR policy. Simulate a conversation with me. You're the disgruntled employee. I'm the HR expert. And so giving it those kinds of instructions, giving it a persona for it to emulate, and then walking through conversations can really be a great way for training your team. So customer service things can work, and let it kind of guide you through that. A great way to practice, and I think is a really cool idea for using AI technology. Giving you a chance to kind of talk to a sounding board, and again, not in a way that it's infallible in its insights, but it definitely can replicate a human, which is also we're also prone to mistakes and incorrect things and everything. So I think it's really good practice for a real person to use. Related to impersonation, not exactly the same thing, but I want to mention sentiment analysis here. So with sentiment analysis, imagine that you're a company, you get 100 emails a day from actual customers. So using something like sentiment analysis, especially combined with the automation that I entered earlier, that would be a situation where it says, okay, here's some emails, and it quickly determines what's the sentiment behind this email. So your AI tool would say, okay, this email, the person's happy with everything. This email, the person is really upset. This person has an urgent question. And then it can help you to sort of triage those emails in terms of which ones you want to respond to more quickly, or if you want to assign a more senior person to responding to certain things. So being able to detect sentiment in reviews or emails or some kind of human insight, human interaction, that again can help you make the most efficient use of your team. So So another related method here. Transformation. This one is my favorite. I've gotten a lot of leverage out of this. I want to show you first off. This is a tool called Fathom. It's a There we go. It's a platform that you can add into a Zoom meeting. You can add your own Fathom recorder. There's a free version and a paid version. And so it would go through the entire meeting. This is a 95-minute meeting that I had with a group. It'll automatically come up with the action items. It'll summarize the purpose, the key takeaways of the conversation. There are different types of summaries you can do. I think the general one is the only one that's freely available. With a paid plan, you can get these others. So if you had a call with a prospective customer and you wanted to talk through, some of their sales needs, you can use these different sales systems. If it's a Q&A, it'll give a summary based on a Q&A. Also has a transcript, project update summary. So these different summaries designed for different things, even a candidate interview. So this is huge. Again, even if your main job is related to some of those things, you can still get a lot from it. I have a person I know who's one of her roles is taking meeting minutes, and she would love to be able to automate that meeting minute process so that she can then add more value by doing other steps, helping to manage those action items or helping with delegating them or keeping them on track or getting the resources that the team needs in order to do those action items. So, again, another really cool idea. I've also been using it here. I did recorded all of my lectures from my course I ran in fall 2020, and I can get different tools. I use Adobe Premiere Pro to generate an automatic transcript. And then I can ask ChatGPT, I can say, okay, ignore any student comments that I make and ignore, or, directly discussing, something with a student, ignore anything I mentioned about assignment deadlines and details, because those can change by semester, and turn this into lecture notes, because I'm about to give the same lecture 5 years later, and I want to make sure I remember the key points. Or turn it into quiz questions that fit the Blackboard very specific pattern for questions that can be imported, or turn it into a note sheet so I can talk to the lecture and then hand the note sheet for my students to fill in while they're listening. Again, I have to check all of these things, but it's a really um, great way for me not to spend time just crunching numbers and everything, moving things around and looking for, deleting the timestamps and all that. I can spend my time working on creating better content for my students, working on delivering that content, making new video recordings for new things, researching new topics for them. I can add more value to my students in this case by getting these tools to do different things with my transcript. So the tip here, creating multiple artifacts from your own well-defined source material. We have a student that took a piece of city code, the entire city code actually. I don't know if you've ever read like the Code of Virginia. It's long and it's long. But if you take that and then you want to be able to give some responses from it, and they actually built an engine that could answer questions based on this section of official government code. Really cool way to, again, kind of leverage from a defined set of content and not just something that, it's freely finding stuff from all over the web. All right, the last idea was generation. So I have a question mark with this first one. Write an outline for a paper about. So personally, I think that you're better off making your own outline. And then again, if there's a piece you want, like give me some sources I can research about that, I think it's better than asking it to kind of do the high level big thing. But again, that goes back to that, contemplating the ethics and privacy, whether that's a consideration. Um, I think a good way to use is if you've already written a report or something and your privacy constraints allow import it in, and then you want help creating an executive summary. That's a good thing, see ChatGPT or another platform can do really well with that. Here's the content, find the most important things, and then you'll still tweak it, but it's a really good way to work. Again, copyrights are very, very important. Some platforms take from copyrighted material. And so then you can't then claim that as your own content. There are some others like the new Adobe Firefly platform that does not use any copyright material. Anything you build there, you are able to use and apply your own content copyrights to, because you have created it with tools, but you have created it. So you really want to use good prompts and the best tools for doing all of this. All right. Last but not least, creating images and video. So I have here a conversation. Again, I built Senior App and have been working with it to do a lot of different student activities recently. And so I'm in these groups, and this is I kind of grabbed some prompts from those groups to show you what it looks like. So starting with this picture, pretend we know her. I just found her on Google, but pretend this is your favorite grad. So first I asked it to make a cartoon of this image. Okay, that was good. Then I asked it to make a coloring page from this image. Then this is the a chat that's been going through that group. So it's got a little more detail about shading and keep the facial features recognizable because you do want it to actually be the person, not just a generic graduate. And it came up with this. So a little cut off at the bottom, not perfect, but it looks like a person. I don't know if it still looks like that same girl, but it's not bad. Then they're doing this thing and they're trying to make it give them wallpaper. And the examples I saw in the group were great, but this one it was not so great. Let's see if it's gonna I don't know if it's gonna load for me real quick. But it wasn't really great. The wallpaper, oh here we go. Scroll down a little bit. All right. The wallpaper was not really great. Here. Not quite. They tried. They didn't quite know what a stole was. They all look a little different. I don't know what's going on here. Um, so then another one, I said, okay, let me be simple. Let me not make her, let me like make a little simplified. And then this one, like, okay, the arms are different, that's cool. Um, Asked it to animate. It all kind of fell apart from here. A lot of server errors. I have a pretty fast computer, a pretty good internet connection, but it still kind of fell apart. First, it was like planning this whole script out, and it was like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do any of that. It just kept like failing. And so anyway, kind of fell apart a bit, memory allocation, blah, blah, blah. But then I asked it just to animate this logo, and it was like, "Hi, what do you want me to do? Zoom, blah, blah, blah." And it did end up animating the logo. I downloaded it to my computer, but it really wasn't anything more than what you could have done in PowerPoint or anything else. It kind of zoomed in and zoomed out, but feel like you could have just, done that a little more easily. So still room to grow with image generation. Adobe Firefly, I confess I did not want to give up um, my 2 free credits on this because I plan to use them for another project. But there are a lot of tools out there. All right, so again, with together on the screen, the 4 steps, the 5 ways, just kind of some guidelines for using AI in different ways. And I just hope that you take a cautiously optimistic attitude towards it. Keep your own brain power engaged and think through ways to use AI to your full advantage, but also giving yourself the freedom and flexibility to be your absolute best at your own ventures. All right. So that is it. And Grace, I hope we can fit in as many questions. Maybe we can do kind of a rapid fire, fit in as many questions as
Yeah,
possible.
absolutely. Thank you so much. I learned so much. I have found that I turn into a crotchety old man when new technology comes onto the scene. And I'm like, what are these robots doing? And you did a great job breaking this down. I so thoroughly enjoyed this. So thank you. And yeah, we have
Cool.
a couple of quick questions. And so going back to the fact that you are a professor and you're a faculty member teaching here, you mentioned some, but how do you encourage or ask your students to use AI either in the classroom or in their coursework when they're working with you? What does that look like?
So great question. I will tell you that I have a different AI policy in my syllabus for every class that I teach.
Oh,
It really does vary. I feel very strongly about building from my own children and then across all of my students, really building critical thinkers and problem solvers. So there are certain steps where I'm like, no, you actually have to learn how to do this yourself. You've got to learn the basic principles yourself before you bring in any outside tools. In each class, I have at least one assignment where we do use AI for something. There's one activity where they have to do an interview for a client project. They have to interview someone, so maybe it's like a restaurant owner or something. And one of the projects is to have ChatGPT give you a list of interview questions for building for a website, a restaurant owner for whom you're building a website, or to practice an interview with a website, a restaurant owner to plan to build a website for them. So it's definitely different. I don't think it should be used at the very beginning of learning. You've got to learn enough so that you can, again, about the discernment part, you've got to learn enough so you can tell which parts are accurate and which parts are not. But then I don't want them just like, wasting time doing stuff, by hand that's not real thought work. If they can, learn the foundations, apply some tools, and then get to an advanced level of thinking and production and design, then maybe they wouldn't have had the capacity to do before. So it definitely varies by class. And I've worked with faculty across campus and digging through these areas, and definitely a lot of careful thought going into it, but there's not really a one size fits all solution, in my opinion.
No, thank you. And then we also had someone ask, what are some of the best user-friendly AI apps or services you recommend new users to check out in order to break into the world of AI other than ChatGPT?
So I think that the best way to kind of get familiar is to use some of those embedded tools that are part of a platform you're already using. So something like if you're in mid doing a Google Slides presentation, it'll ask you some things like, oh, would you like help with, certain tasks, finding images for the slide or something like that. I think kind of getting practice with, again, those small steps within a bigger process is a good way to kind of get used to it, because you're in a system you're already used to and you're adding some AI into it. I think that's a really good way to go. I'd also tell someone to pay close attention to the search results that come from either Bing or Google searches, where they'll have an AI generated or a Copilot generated response at the beginning. Pay close attention to that and kind of use some of that discernment. Like, are these results accurate? Is this an accurate summary? And then look at the sources. So I think kind of paying attention to it in the process of what you're already doing will kind of ease you into some familiarity and give you already the ability to make some good judgment calls before you dive into a full production situation.
Awesome, thank you. And then one more question. How can we stay best up to date on the evolution of AI? Like, is there a good source you recommend, or how can we stay informed as this is so quickly evolving?
That's a really good question. There is a newsletter that I have signed on for called it's called TLDR, like too long didn't read, but that's the actual name of the newsletter. The problem is sometimes the actual summaries even are TLDR for me, because I'll open my email and it'll tell me like 10 huge things that happened today. I'm like, this is too much. So I do think kind of paying attention to mainstream media is going to give you an awareness of the big things, but it's going to be kind of through kind of a clickbaity filter. So it's not going to be all completely in perspective. Um, Another thing that I do like to do is, once I do have a couple tools that I'm used to, I'll follow along with their own change log or blogs or information about their new features. And that helps me to have kind of a more controlled progression than when I'm just trying to take it all in like a fire hose. It can really be a lot. So I think kind of some carefully selected small doses of taking in information, because I mentioned 100 tools. I put that list together quite a while ago, and I could probably find a list of 300 right now. There's one tool that I do like. It's a Chrome extension. It's called Momentum, and I do pay for the paid access. And it's so in my Chrome browser, it lets me do kind of like keeps me from being all over the place, and keeps me, it's got like a Pomodoro timers on and everything. But in the corner, one of the features is an AI feature, and this gives you like just a limited number of prompts you can ask it. But it kind of, again, in context, is, let me ask you 5 different things today to kind of help me out. And then that again can kind of help you to sort of ease into learning about this enormously huge and continually changing landscape.
Hmm, awesome. Thank you so much. So we're going to be mindful of everybody's time and we're going to end it here. But as you can see, she has her contact information on this last slide. And then this presentation will also be recorded and emailed out to all of you in the following week. So be on the lookout for that next week. But we just want to say thank you again so much, Kimberly, for joining us. And thank you to all of you who decided to join into this session. We will return next month again, and we'll actually be closing out the academic year with hearing from our Alumni Society Board of Director President, Nate Fontaine, another captain for life. He's going to be sharing with us about the current state of our Alumni Society here at Christopher Newport, ways to get involved, and how we as alumni can support our alma mater. So, thank you again for joining us, and we hope you have a great rest of your week and weekend, and we will be seeing you soon. Thank you guys.
Bye.